but they were.
Wait, it was like a train? You're jumping onto a train? What the hell?
Yeah, pretty much. So it was just me and my buddy Ethan. There were like 2 types of trains that would go out there. There was the salt cars, which had hard tops and they were all covered, and then there were the coal cars, which were completely uncovered.
They're wild. What the hell?
Cart moves, lands in the next one, and I'm like, oh, it works.
Mom's like, if your friends are jumping off a bridge with you, and you'd be
I'd
like,
be like, yeah.
well, if Ethan does it first, then yeah.
I mean, that kind of sparked a whole generation of people who were like, wow, that was really dope.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming back and tuning in with Getting Real with Rome. This is take 2, actually. And this is amazing because it just kind of shows the stuff that you have to go through. Like, people don't think about the mistakes that you make when you're starting something and you're new at something. And it's okay. It's totally fine. So I'm here with Aiden and Jamie. And they have a company called Filmrunners. So they specialize in creating cinematic footage for parkour. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys is it only centered around parkour, or is it any other sports related themes?
Yeah. I'm assuming I'm taking this one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously the base is parkour, right? The base is parkour because that's kind of where we started. That's what piqued our interest the most. But it's really any sort of movement. I mean, I've played every sport there kind of has been growing up, and then out of high school you couldn't really do sports anymore, and I found parkour, and then from parkour I found, like, I was already into dance and music, but I dance and music was something because it was just movement. Parkour, more movement, tricking, like you name it. If it's a movement style, I've probably tried it or been interested in it because movement is such an interesting thing. And between my love of movement and my love of cinema and movies and like just how impactful movies were for me growing up. I mean, TV shows, movies, anime. I mean, anime is a big one, right? And I think anime is a big one because it gave movement that purpose. Like, you watch Naruto, for instance, has some of the most gas fight scenes you've ever seen, not because the fight scenes are thrown at you, but because there's so much build. And like when that moment comes and hits, you're like, oh, it hits. Like Jiraiya versus Pain. I mean, that's one of the GOATs of all time, right? Everybody talks about that one. Mm-hmm. And that's because there was build, there was someone to care about, there was a fight to go after, and you didn't know what was gonna happen. You know what I mean? So,
that's wild because even Conor McGregor hired this guy. I forgot his name. I forgot the guy's name, but he focuses and specializes in body movement. And people travel to him. I think he's based out of Bali, and people travel to him worldwide just to understand how the body moves better, right? Yeah. Because there's so much movement in our day-to-day life. And even like when you look at, this is a crazy thing. When you look at why deaths to individuals past 60 years old, it's because of falling. So it's crazy how pivotal movement plays a role in even our life or death situations when we get older. So that's really interesting. Okay.
That's actually a really interesting statistic too, because one of the base premises in parkour, it's basically the first thing you learn when we teach parkour, is the art of falling, or Ukemi as it's called. And Ukemi is really interesting because it's literally just like the first thing you do before you do anything is you learn how to not make it. You learn how to fail. You learn how to fall. You learn how to hurt yourself the least in falling. Like, you're learning your body mechanics when you hit the floor hard, because it's gonna happen. And yeah, that's like the number one thing you learn in parkour, because if you're gonna do parkour and you're gonna actually try and participate, like, stuff like that's gonna happen. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've hit the floor pretty hard and Ukemi saved you a couple times. Like, You're trying an extreme thing. You've got to be prepared for it. You know, you can't just pretend like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that is what I've seen. Some gnarly freaking bails and gnarly falls, just kind of like doing some research up into the, like, having this conversation with you guys. Yeah. And like, even the stuff I've seen in movies, you know, from like, you know, watching Jackie Chan do some crazy stunts to like, you know, I just remember, you know, it's something that was funny that came to mind was this scene it's like a Mr. Bean. Do you guys know who Mr. Bean is?
Yeah, I love Mr.
So
Bean.
Mr. Bean is like, you know, he does this one thing. It's called like work harder, not smarter. And like, it's this parkour guy, like doing crazy stunts, like over fences. And Mr. Bean's like an agent. So he's like chasing him and he like opens a fence and walks through it versus this guy like scales this wall and jumps over it. And I think about how dangerous that stuff is. And it's freaking wild, dude. So let me ask you this real quick. How did you guys end up linking up and deciding, hey, like, let's do something in film? Like, where did that seems like a wild mixture. Like, how did that end up happening?
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you take this one, actually. Go for it.
All right. So we actually met at a parkour gym. I'm going to leave it, just the name out of there just for personal reasons. But we actually were parkour coaches coming from different backgrounds. I came from Orange County. I was only doing parkour for about a year by the time I moved to Riverside. The reason I moved to that gym specifically was because I heard about all these great coaches that live there, where the gym even had a coach's house where like they had the coaches live together. And me as a new parkour athlete, because I considered myself a new parkour athlete, wanting to learn more about the sport because I was 22 at the time. I came into the sport so late because I've seen like kids younger than me, like 15 years old, 16, already doing like double backflips and all that. I'm like, if I want to catch up to them, I need to learn from the best. So I moved there, and when I moved to that gym specifically, that's how I met my buddy Aiden, who was also one of the coaches there. And when I moved there, they were already telling me he was one of the top coaches too, because he's already had that background of parkour. I'd say by that time you had like 7 years or 8 years of experience already.
Yeah, I'm coming on to 8 years right about now, but I'd say by the time you met me, it was like 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
Parkour movement.
6 to 7 years. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really, and then whenever I saw this guy kind of move around doing stuff at the gym, even the kids saw, they're like, how are you doing all these flips super crazy? And even I would ask him, like, how are you doing all that? That's scary stuff that we watch on YouTube videos. And then he would always tell us, like, I've been doing this for years. And then one day, because he saw me training, he's like, do you want to join me to go train outside at UCR? One of the colleges that's actually 15 minutes away from here. And it was kind of funny because when I came in, I think he had an idea. It's like, yeah, this guy likes to work and he thinks he's up there already. Because I'll admit, I thought I was already up there. He's like, I am ready to humble this guy.
It was a little bit of like that. Well, for me, it was like, because he had a base understanding, but everything changes when you go touch concrete. You know what I mean? Like once you try and send it on a hard surface, it's a different game. And so I brought him outside. I brought him to the college, and he went out there and he's like, I don't want to do anything. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it goes.
It's a lot different falling on a matted floor, right? Than
100%.
For sure, a lot different.
Because when you're on concrete, like you now have to you don't just know Ukemi. If you fall, you have to truly know, because like this is the real deal. This is hard surface. But once you get used to that, and I think that's what kind of pushed me as a parkour athlete too. Like I've branched way more into the cinematic side of things and trying to get a shot look good. And I'm like, when it comes to like flipping and the extreme scales of parkour, like I'm nowhere near the top. I mean, there's a man who's just pushing the game to another level. His name's Ellis Torhall, who's just like doubles and doubles off bars and flips and twists onto hard concrete that are just absurd. Like to get to that level, you just have to be like a beast. You just have to be another level of beast. You know what I mean? Like the Kobe of flips. There's really no other way to put it.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, man. I mean, it's one of those things where it's where passion meets talent.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit of both and a little bit of luck. You know, it's a mix of it all. So you guys meet at this gym. Mm-hmm. You get humbled, right? But you're skilled in itself. I actually seen some footage from the Fit Expo. I see you do your thing, bro. You got it. You know what you're doing. You're being humble. You know what you're doing. And I've seen you do your thing, bro. And so it's crazy. What's wild to me is you guys are both athletes. That's the truth. Mm. So where does film come into play? Like where did this idea of like, let's put this in, let's let's film other people doing this.
You want me to take this one?
Go for it.
All right. So before I got into the sport of parkour, I grew up as a lover of just film, movies, anime, and TV shows, and even YouTube. I've always looked up to like all those people that just made it through work, like the YouTubers, the show creators. Like I would even research like the guys that made Naruto or even Dragon Ball Z or even One Piece. Like I look up to Oda because I'm like, that guy put a lot of work into like his own anime in One Piece, which is a show I freaking love to death. And I always just looked up to the creators of like just anything, any entertainment or any story in general, because those are the shows that influenced me when I grew up. And growing up, I wanted to kind of like be that guy as well, create stories that other kids could grow up with. So that's how I got into the film industry. I actually started YouTube and editing since I was 14, since literally my last year in middle school. It was just a video project I did for middle school. I learned how to edit. I'm like, this is fun. And then I started making my own YouTube videos at around the age of 16. And that's where I really started teaching myself like how to start filming, how to start editing, how to start doing all that. And then by the time I graduated out of high school, I really didn't want to go to college because I was like, that's a lot of college debt money. And I'm like, I'm just going to get into the film industry because I already have the knowledge I've been working on for 4 years. I think I have what it takes to make it. I got a lot of help from my family, and then I actually got an internship with a film company, a wedding industry film company. I'm going to just leave it unnamed for personal reasons again. But basically, that's how I met my buddies there who were all super experienced videographers and video editors who have been in the industry for years, yet they're already at the same place as I was because I was literally having the same job as them. So I was like, here I am, not having any diploma or any of that, and just from work. I already have the same job as these guys that have been doing tens of years of photography and videography. This is my opportunity to learn from them instead of having to take college because they learn from the college industry. They learn from their masters. All I need is just get that knowledge from them and then start learning how to make commercial videos. And then I got the end with the community of all the filmmakers who are always just trying to put themselves out there. And by working with them, closer with them, and learning from them, I was able to get all that knowledge that people usually pay, I'm going to say like hundreds of thousands of dollars to get pretty much for free, if not getting paid to do it because I was literally working the same job as them and getting paid to get better as a video editor and a filmmaker. And then after that, that's how pretty much I started off my wedding filmmaking business. And then after a while, that's when I got into the sport of parkour. And that's when I started wanting to film parkour more and more, especially when I met my buddy Aiden. That's when we got more into it.
Amazing. So I'm curious. So what is it that you guys do right now with Filmrunners? What is your core business model, or is it a passion project, or is it a business right now?
I'll take that one. Sure. It's a little bit of both. It's a passion turning business, right? That's really the best way to describe it. I mean, and it has to start as a passion. We're basically building something that doesn't fully exist yet, right? Because it is so focused on parkour. Every video we make is so focused on parkour, but also so focused on the cinematic aspect of that. And there are so many people who have come before us that have like, some have made it, some have not, but I haven't really seen much from the LA scene in particular. I mean, parkour is the biggest overseas. It's the biggest over in China. It's the biggest in Australia. It's the biggest in Europe, specifically England. I mean, England and France are kind of like the birthplaces of parkour, and a lot of that is because their cities are built for it. You know what I mean? Like they've been through so much, and there's such a deep, rich historical culture that like the cities themselves have gone through so many changes and revamps and
Like layers on top of
layers on layers, and then there's
Yeah.
just walls to be used and setups to be used. I mean, there's a group of people in England, I guess I'll say. They're not London. I don't know if they're specifically London, but they say like London is such a huge utopia for parkour. Like they've traveled all over the world. The group's called Store. They've traveled all over the world and done parkour everywhere, and they're like, there's no place like London. Like, there's so much footage we've given to you guys, and so much more we could, because there's spots on spots. We could never reach it all if we had our whole lifetime.
Wow.
So yeah, that's just how crazy London is for parkour. But yeah, I mean, to get back to the core of the question, yeah, it has to start with passion, right? You can't do this without the passion. And for me, that passion started, I mean, I come from a little town way out called Ridgecrest, which is halfway to Mammoth, way out in the desert. And I started my training on rocks and sand. That's what we had, you know, like that's what went on. We have a community college up there that's pretty decent, but I mean, most of our fun stuff that we've been training on, and what I think, and we're gonna make a video out there, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. But like old abandoned mine towns where it's just like, this place hasn't been active since the 1920s. It's almost like an old Western vibe. And there's just like piles of sand and massive ravines and half broken buildings. And like, that's what you use. That's what you have, you know? And,
yeah, whatever you have available, right?
Right, exactly. And I just fell in love with the idea, and me and all of my friends did, but I decided to take it a step further and move out to Moreno Valley and work at the gym that we were working at. And then I got my job that brought me to LA. Was I got a job doing quarter break performances with the Clippers. I jump off mini tramps and dunk, and that was a job that, yeah, it's just fun. But
wild.
It's movement, right? It was just something. I loved basketball. That was my main sport. I played it for like 5 years. And
you know what's crazy?
Mixed it, really.
You know what's crazy about you guys, and what's pretty wild, what I'm hearing pretty consistently, is you guys have both honed in and mastered its skills that are, you know, from the outside looking in, I don't really care about, like, from an employer or from like a person that wants a job to be done, right? I'm not looking at like, let me see your resume. I'm looking at like, what can you do?
Right.
Right? Like when I look at you, brother, it's like, what can you do? Oh, you can edit, you can do these things. Well, like, you're in. Like, I need that done, right? I don't really care about your resume. Same thing with you. Like, all right, can you jump from, you know, this bleacher onto a trampoline and make a dunk without hurting yourself? Yeah, okay, you're in. That's what I want. You know what I mean? So it's not like you guys have mastered these skills. And, you know, both of you, it seems like, just having earlier conversation with both of you earlier, you guys are cross-breeding your skills together.
Yeah.
Right? You're learning film from him. He's learning from you when it comes to movement, right? And you guys are creating something that's pretty unique. What is it? What is Filmrunners? Let me ask you that. Like, let me ask that question. What is Filmrunners, and what do you guys hope to do with it?
I think this is a twofer. Because
Let him say it first.
I'll say mine, and then you say yours, and we'll see the differences between them. I think that'll be fun. For me, Filmrunners is the kind of realization of cinema and movement. So it's not just like parkour, but parkour based. It's our realization of what we think is missing from movement in cinema. I think the last time I saw a good parkour scene in cinema was probably Six Underground, because they used Store to do Six Underground. That was good. But I mean, when Sebastian Foucan did the 007 movie, I mean, that kind of sparked a whole generation of people who were like, wow, that was really dope. And Sebastian Foucan, who did 007, he's one of the, like, known as one of the founders of parkour. He kind of like started the whole base. So he had built that name for himself, him and David Bell. And yeah, for me, Filmrunners is just kind of like both following in the footsteps of a path made already with film and parkour, and also trying to create our own and adding our own flair and just kind of having fun with it, and just having a passion for movement and a passion for cinema, and trying to make that work for us, whatever that looks like. So
yeah. And to add on to that, I remember when we came up with that name, I don't know. We spent like weeks trying to figure out a name for our
Oh my
company
gosh!
name.
We were like, everything sucks. This sucks. We don't know.
We're both so picky with everything. We're like, what do you think of this name, Aiden? He's like, hate it.
I know everything sounds so tacky when you say it out loud,
Yeah,
right?
and then when it came to Filmrunners, there was like the one name that was like on the back of our minds, and I'm like, I actually don't hate it. And he was like the same thing, like I don't hate it either. So let's go with it. And then I remember like when everybody else heard it, I'm like, I'm okay with that name. Like,
I keep hearing it to this day, and I'm like, it's okay. It rolls off the tongue. I feel like.
I like it actually.
Yeah.
Filmrunners. It sounds cool. You know, like Filmrunners. Yeah, it sounds cool. I remember thinking like because I've had several different businesses, and I hated coming up with the names.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst thing ever, right? Oh.
Because like one business I started with one of my friends, I loved it because like it was a service-based business. So I was like, bro, I really don't care about the name. And he's like, I don't either. And we're just like, let's just whatever we come up with, let's just run with it.
Yeah,
so
I feel you
but when you have something that you're actually truly passionate about, the name's like so important because you're like, dude, this is what we're gonna be known for. Right. So it's like naming your business like naming a baby. Like this is stuck. Like whatever we say, like this business is stuck with it. So I understand how that feels. So Filmrunners, that's freaking cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So do you film, let me ask you this. Do you film athletes reach out to you and they say, hey, I want to film a set or I want to do something crazy. Are you guys filming that?
I'll start it off. So we literally just started our business this year. And the reason we were able to get a Fit Expo was because we had a connection with a buddy of ours for a parkour competition called War of the Walls. That's how we got our in with it. And basically, our buddy running War of the Walls needed footage because it's a cool event. There's a lot of people coming, and they needed help with marketing as well. And they knew me as a marketer because not only have I been in the video industry, but I've also been working on just marketing in general since the past few years. So they came to me and they needed my help. Then I brought Aiden in, and then we started marketing for them, and then we started filming the event for them. And then they were able to give us a booth for that. So we're like, heck yeah, score. And once we got our booth, that's when I'm like, my priority this weekend is just connect with people. And then just get us started. So that expo was kind of basically our exposure not only to the companies out there, but also to the athletes out there. Our whole goal with the Filmrunners company with all these athletes is for them not only to start noticing us first, and then bring awareness basically. Once the awareness gets out there, that's when we can start thinking more like, what do we want to do with this company for the parkour community? Because that's going to be our main priority, because the main way for Filmrunners to run as a business is with the support of the community.
Right.
I love that, man. So we're at the ground level. So I can't wait to check back in with you guys further along down the road. This is exciting. I love this. Like, this is one of the most exciting parts of a business because you could take this in any direction, right? You could figure out, and to be quite honest with you, your customers are gonna teach you on what direction that you want to take, right? So what I'm curious about is like filming these crazy elaborate stunts. Like, how do you do? Are you like running behind that person? Is there like a special technique, or are you guys figuring it out along the way too?
You want me to answer that one because I've been doing it longer?
I think, well, we have such different filming styles in that regard, and it's such a process. I've got something in mind if you want. I'm sure we both have something to say about that. But for me, like, I mean, it's almost never first take. I mean, we're still, I feel like, and filming in general, for me, I feel like if you're not constantly experimenting with something new, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, filming is such an abstract thing. Like, you don't know what you know what you want to capture, but you don't know what that means until you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's one of those things. So like every you experience this in every aspect of life. You don't know what you don't know,
right?
Until you know it, right? Like today, like my cameras were messing up. I have 128 gigabytes on it, and it showed I only had 13 minutes of record time. And thank God, Jamie right here was like came through clutch, and he was like, "Oh, I know exactly how to solve that." And it's like, I didn't know what I didn't know until I knew it, right? And it's like, I can imagine it's the same thing with you guys. Like, someone does a crazy flip and you're like, dang it, actually would have looked better at this angle.
Right.
Or like, whatever it may be, right? So, Jamie, with you, like, how do you feel like your filming style is when you're recording these crazy stunts and athletes?
Yeah, so I've been really working on my style of shooting since I was 19. So it's almost been 5 years at this point. And that's just from coming from the wedding industry, because when I started filmmaking, I'm like, my mentality was I want to be the best wedding filmmaker in the LA/OC area, because I want couples coming to me saying that and telling others. So the same thing when it comes to the parkour filming, because I'm like, especially that a lot of the free runners and parkour athletes don't have that filming experience. I'm like, I know I can be the best filmmaker. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, not to my own horn here, but because of the work and the experience I put in, I'm like, I know there's not any other free runners putting in that work for the filming. And using my experience, I like to think about specifically angles and storytelling. And this actually took us a year to experiment, both me and Aiden, when we were training a lot together, because we made a lot of content, but we also have a lot of bad clips.
Yeah.
Because I remember like he would throw like a little side flip, and I'm like, Aiden, I gotta let you know, buddy, that was a cool side flip, but I missed it.
But
Like, I know I have that experience, but even I can mess up in that. And it just took a lot of experimenting, and it got to a point where we're like, okay, now we have a good idea. And when it comes to my style, I like to really showcase, because I know how this guy plans his lines, because we talk about it. And I'm like, usually when we film like any of these crazy stunts, I'm like, what is the most important stunt for you when you're doing this? Like, for example, I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. Let's say Aiden does some big jumps, and then he wants to end it with a big side flip, right? I'm like, cool. What's the big goal from here? And he's like, I really want to get that side flip in. Cool. When I film, I'm going to focus on that side flip the most. And that's just how I film like other athletes in general, seeing like, because every athlete, parkour athlete, is always trying to push themselves at the end of the day. And sometimes when they're doing these stunts, there's always that one thing they're focused on, the emphasis. And I'm like, I want to make sure I captured that the most, because that's what they're going to remember from that stunt the most.
Oh, I like that, man. You know what's crazy is you brought up a good point. It's honestly putting in the repetition and having a bunch of crap film or a bunch of crap footage or audio. Like even today, we started the podcast and I didn't hit record. And I'm like, oh my God, guys, we got to run it back. Right. So it's until you've put in the reps, until you've, what did you call bailing again? What is that called?
the Ukemi.
The Ukemi. I love, what is that? Is that Japanese?
I believe it's Japanese. Don't quote me on that.
Okay,
but I'm pretty sure it's
that
Japanese.
I love that. It's like the Ukemi. Like you have to go through all of these Ukemis in order to get good at what you do. Right. Because there's no way that you can start out the gate and be a professional without missing a bunch of shots, falling a bunch of times, getting scrapes on the knees, getting those scars, right? Building that callus. You have to fuck up in order to get good. And I think that so many people in life are so afraid of fucking up that they hold back. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
And even this little podcast room or whatever it is that you guys are starting, right? Like people, it's okay to be just good enough, because just good enough gets you to want to be better. And when you're better, then you realize, oh man, I can be a lot better. So you can go from decent to good to great to amazing, but you have to be willing to suck.
Right. I mean, to be fair to that point, my good clips don't make me want to be better. My bad clips do, right? Like it's not that my good clips make me go, oh, I can do so much more. It's that my bad clips are like, I can't look like that again. I have to be better. So, I mean, if you never have those bad clips, I feel like you're stunting your own progression at that point too, right?
I love that, man. So let me ask both of you, all right, what is your advice to someone that wants to start in parkour? And why? Like, why would somebody, well, first off, let me ask this. Before we get to that question, why would somebody want to start parkour?
Oh my goodness. Can I take this one?
I'll
Oh
let
gosh,
you go first.
I've got passion on passion for that question. Because movement is a part of your life whether you like it or not. You have to move every day, all the time, and if you I feel like everybody needs at least some sort of passion for movement. Like maybe not necessarily on such an extreme scale, but parkour is so wide and diverse. Like the only requirement for parkour is that you use the environment around you through the expression of movement. Like just get up, move, jump a wall, climb. Like your body needs to know that it can do these sort of things. And when you do, like once I started doing parkour truly and I really, really started diving into it, I mean, there's this thing that parkour athletes have that we know we have, but other people are like, what does that mean? We call it parkour vision, where like now when I walk around a city, you just see spots all the time. You're like, this wall, this setup, this way. You don't just walk around the city. You're like, I want to move around the city. Or maybe it's not so inspiring and you don't want to move around the city. But then that gets you into architecture a little bit, right? Where you're like, oh man, this city is built so perfectly for this and this. And like, I wonder what the architects were even thinking when they had this in mind. Because except for this Kong Pre that I'm about to do, what's the use of this? You know what I mean? So, yeah, just do it. Just do. It doesn't even matter. Just do. Just get up and move and find your own passion and heart for it, because you will. Movement is such a cool thing. I refuse to believe that anybody isn't going to start moving and not enjoy it.
I love that. I love that, man. I could hear the passion, man.
Oh man,
Wild.
Yeah, to add on to how I would recommend for people to start parkour, I'm gonna start with the why. The reason I got into parkour was because it was literally during COVID. We all remember COVID. That was when everybody had all the free time but nothing to do. And I'll tell you this, like, I was fired right before COVID from the wedding company I was working with because they had to lay off a lot of people. And fun fact was, I was getting paid more not working than when I was working there. And I'm like, yo, I got all the free time in the world. And I got all the money. What the heck do I do? Because all the stores are closed.
Dang it.
So that's when I kind of went back to parkour, because I remember watching that when parkour was all the hype during like the 2010s, 2012. I wanted to start on it, but I was always scared because I was just a 10, like a 12-year-old. And I'm like, I don't know how to start. I'm just a little kid. And then now I'm like 20 years old and I'm looking at these videos again. I'm like, might as well, because I can't even play basketball with my buddies right now because they're scared of hanging out with me. And I'm like, parkour is a sport where I can just do it myself and just challenge myself. And that's kind of the biggest thing what I love about parkour. It is a sport where you can challenge yourself in your own way. When people watch those YouTube videos, like the building jumping or people doing all these nasty flips, I'm like, yes, that's parkour, but that's not for everybody. That's not all parkour. They all started the same way that you can start. Just simple jumps. All those pros that you've seen doing all that stuff, they had to get really good at the fundamentals. If you can't do a normal jump, you cannot do a side flip over a building. I will be straight up with you. They had to work on that for years before they can start doing all that cool stuff. And just because you don't want to do that doesn't mean you shouldn't do parkour. It is still a sport where you can have your own personal growth and find your own challenges. Because like I said, when we both train together, this guy was doing side flips over rails, and I'm like, I'm just gonna jump over the rail for practice. Like, no, that's perfect. Do you? You don't have to do what I'm doing because I've been doing this for years. I'm just challenging myself. Do your challenges. And that's kind of how I would have people start, actually. Start with something basic that's easy for you. Like I said, just a normal jump. If you can do that, get out of your comfort zone just a little bit. For example, if you can jump 4 feet, cool. Jump 5 feet. If you're struggling with that, get really good at jumping 5 feet. That way, when it gets so easy, jump 6 feet.
I like that. It's the progression, right? Mm-hmm. It's the progression. It's the passion, right? It's a mix of everything. I can see why you guys chose to work with one another, because you guys have that balance of passion and technicality, right? Because that's what you really need to build something. I like that a lot, guys. So now, from an athlete's perspective, like, how do I build a career? Is there a career that's built in parkour, or is there like a jumping point? Like, is there a way to make money in parkour, or is it more of like what's it called? Like a CrossFit type of thing, where it's done to be an athlete and to like strengthen other aspects of your life, right?
Yeah, so
you can have this one.
Yeah, I've got lists for that. So, I mean, parkour's been around for so long, and the monetization of parkour has been such a topic for so long. And like, how do you do that? And then COVID kind of put its stamp in the middle of the world, and it kind of reset everything. And it's really, I feel like that question is hard to answer for everybody, right? Because I don't know what monetization of parkour looks like to people who live in England and France and Australia. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but I mean, for us, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do, is take the passion that we have and be able to do it long term and monetize it in a way, because that's just a necessity, right? Like, as much as you want to believe that you can just do parkour forever and be okay, if you really, really want to pursue parkour on a true business basis, you have to figure out how to monetize it. And I think that's something that's still being figured out in a way. And we're definitely trying to figure that out, and connecting with businesses is a way to do that. And I'm sure Jamie has more to add to that.
Oh, I do. So parkour is still a very young sport compared to like all the other ones. So I'll let you know, like, I'm a big basketball fan too. I grew up as a basketball fan, and we both love watching it. I like to compare parkour to basketball because if it comes to my top 2 favorite sports, it's going to be those two, and I like comparing them a lot. Back then, basketball players did not make that much money, like the founders and all that. It did not start getting popular till Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and Michael Jordan came in. Once they came in, that's when everybody started wanting to be a basketball player when they grew up, and like, I need to make money. And then little by little, sponsorships, brand deals started coming in, and like, now all these companies want these basketball players, because like when during that time, Michael Jordan, I don't know if you were able to witness him in like TV or in person. You did?
Yeah. I remember growing up seeing my uncles and cousins watch the games. Absolutely.
Right. So I'm sure you've heard the hype. Like, everybody wanted to be like Mike.
Oh yeah, absolutely, bro.
Right. So because everybody saw him as this superhuman, this super freak, because like, how the heck is this guy able to jump 48 inches and then able to slam dunk from like the 3-pointer line? When I saw that, I'm like, I know this guy put a lot of work into his craft, and to everybody, he just seems like a talented freak. But he always told everybody, just so y'all know, I'm not this good because I'm talented. I put a lot of work into this, and I put a lot of work in this because I love this sport. Because of this one guy that was able to put all this work and was able to put himself out there, everybody started paying attention to basketball. Because of that, now we have the Kobe Bryants, the Steph Currys, the LeBron James, Kevin Durant. And like I said, the reason they're all in the NBA now is because of that one guy.
Yeah.
And the reason he's in is because of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. The reason they're in is because of the founders. I say parkour is in a early state still, where it still is not there, because people still don't know too much about it. Because like, if you were to talk about it to a normal person, they'll probably be like, The Office.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't know too much about parkour. So like I said, our goal is to bring more awareness to the sport with Filmrunners as a company, especially connecting with just anybody out there, any other companies that may be interested, because we even had an energy drink company come to our competition, very interested, like wanting to kind of be involved with content making. Because right now, like I said, if I were to talk to every other company, they'll be like, I haven't heard of parkour since like 2012. And the goal with Filmrunners is like really to bring awareness to the sport, pretty much to the general audience.
You know, just to toss, like, the way that I see parkour right now is kind of like the early stages, because I grew up skating, and it's like the early stages of skating. Like, it's like really underground. Like, people don't really like, oh, like skating, what is that? Like what is exactly, like, what do you do? Like, how do you make money from that? And then you see the era of like Chris Coles and like if you ask somebody like, name a famous skateboarder, so immediately people think, Tony Hawk, right? Or like that guy that does ridiculousness, what's his name?
Rob Dyrdek.
Rob Dyrdek, yeah. So like, those are like the only 2 famous skateboarders that people could think of, right? But in reality, there are skateboarders that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year off sponsorships and everything else in between. So I look at parkour, right? And I think, you know, from a business standpoint, how does this sport make money? Like, how do you monetize this sport? And one of the first things that come to mind is, if I owned, let's just say I owned a suit company that made extremely stretchy suits, right? Dude, it would be so cool to have a parkour like professional put my suit on and like film a commercial of him running through the city to like catch a meeting on time, or like get with the girl that he's late to a date on, right? And he's doing these crazy stunts, right? And at the end of the commercial, it's like the most breathable, flexible suits on planet Earth or something.
Yeah.
Right? Or if I owned a like I don't know, like a shoe company, right? And some guy's late and I want to film him doing some crazy stuff. So like, I see the monetization in this sport pretty heavily. I think that there's really opportunity for you guys to capture a segment of the market, put it on film, and show, like, companies don't know what they don't know. Like we circle back to what we're talking about. They don't know how to monetize. Nobody really knows how to monetize it until you can visualize it, right? So if you guys can put that on film and be like, hey, I love this suit company or I love this shoe company. Let me show you what I can do with it, right? Hire me to do this, right? And we'll put the athletes together. We'll put the film together and we'll deliver it to you in a package, right? And now all of a sudden you guys could be the stepping stone to like the Magic Johnson. You guys could be the stepping stone to Larry Bird, right? And you guys can capture those people on film and make this thing popular. So I think it's a beautiful thing that you guys are starting where you're starting right now because the potential is limitless, you know? So I love that, man.
Yeah, kind of. I also agree with you that it's a beautiful time to do it because I the way I see it is like we're kind of catching that post-COVID wave, right? Like everything's starting up. Everybody's like, ooh, we can dip our toes outside again. We can start getting back into meeting and business and I'm like, that's the perfect time to revamp. That's the perfect time to start up because you can spearhead that, you know? That's the way I saw it. And yeah.
That's freaking awesome, man. So what I'm kind of curious about is, you know, what's some stuff that you guys would like to capture? Maybe when we put this out there, there's one or two people that see this that are in the parkour community that want to capture something. Like what's some ideas that you guys have in mind that you want to capture, put on film?
I've got a kind of an answer for that. And I think a lot of my answer for that comes from where I grew up. Parkour for me and my boys out in Ridgecrest looks so different from parkour from these people that grew up in cities and in big cities and urban environments where kind of parkour was like originated, right? I mean, parkour existed primarily because people were using these cities and showing off the architecture and doing crazy big stunts. Well, for me and my boys back in Ridgecrest, parkour was getting out of the city, going to these abandoned mine spots, going out to, we would have trains and coal cars come by, and we knew they would come by every Sunday, and there was a tunnel that was like just tall enough to kind of be over top, and they would come by and go under, and we would jump into the coal cars from the top of the tunnel, and like that was parkour for us.
Like, were they moving?
Oh yeah, but they were.
Wait, it was like a train? You're jumping onto a train? What the hell?
Yeah, pretty much. But okay, so it was just me and my buddy Ethan. Shout out to my boy Ethan. We were absolutely crazy children, and we got our cars, we got our licenses, and we were like, what do we do? Well, we knew the trains were out there, so we went out to the trains, and we did that a lot.
Yo, y'all are wild. What the hell?
Well, they would park there. So there were like two types of trains that would go out there. There was the salt cars, which had hard tops, and they were all covered, and then there were the coal cars, which were completely uncovered, and it was just a thick pile of coal. And we would, when it was the salt cars, we would just run along them because they would park right there. It was like the end of the tracks, and they would just park right there between Trona and Ridgecrest. Well, we started to learn their schedules, and we knew they came in every Sunday. And one day we just decided that we were going to sit on top of the tunnel while it was going by. And I mean, this had to be like 100-car coal train because we sat there and we were like, watching it go by. It was coming towards the end, so it couldn't have been going too fast, maybe 40, 45 miles an hour. And we were like, if we jump now, we'll hit the next cart. So we timed it. We timed it for like, there were like 30, 40 cars went by, and then Ethan goes, I think I'm going to go for it. And I was like, okay. And he jumps, and he times the cart in front of it. Cart moves, lands in the next one. And I'm like, oh, it works. He can do that. So I run in, and I'm like, okay, here we go. He's on the sidelines, and I time the cart. The last cart's passing, and I jump. And it is the scariest thing, because when you first jump, there is a moment when you're looking down where you are in between both coal cars, and that looks like where you're dropping. and then the
Wow.
coal cart, it's moving faster than you, so you keep going and you land in the coal cart. But that's at that point, that's just adrenaline junkie stuff, though.
Wow. Like literally, is it a train or is it like?
Yeah, it's like it was
like a
100
train,
foot
like a what are they like 15 feet tall? Like,
Oh yeah, and the tunnel had to have been like 25 to 30. So it
dude,
was
so
about
this is a
10-foot drop.
death-defying stunt. Like if you
Yeah.
if you slip and you get under those rails, you're
You're
done.
gone. You're absolutely gone. But like, I mean, and you can say it's dangerous, and it was. Like, it was stupid and dangerous. But I would argue that because we watched so many cars go, and we were like, we figured out the timing and we made it work. Like, the only reason we jumped is because we were confident we knew the timing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't just jump and hope.
Yeah.
Like, we were like, I think I know the timing. And he was like, I think I know the timing. I'm going to go for it. And my boy Ethan is like, we're both pretty ballsy, but he's just slightly ballsier. And so, but if he does it, I know it's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
There's always got to be the first guy.
Right, exactly. And he's always that guy. And sometimes I would take it from him and I'd feel so gassed about it, but he was usually that guy. But yeah, he jumped, he hit the coal cart, and I was like, that's the timing. That's it.
Dude, Aiden, you know what? You're the type of guy that when your mom's like, if your friends are jumping off a bridge with you, and you'd be
I'd
like,
be like, yeah.
well, if Ethan does it first, then yeah.
What do you mean? I'm the one jumping off the bridge, you know? Like,
Sorry.
Oh, man.
that friend your mom talks about, that's Ethan for sure.
it is. It
You're
is.
like, if Ethan can do it, then yeah, for sure,
that
Mom. I
first
would
guy.
definitely jump off a bridge.
But it was like, it's like the timing and effort that went into it too, which sounds wild because we had no reason. It was like, but for some reason we were watching these coal cars go by and it fascinated us. We were like, we could jump in. And how dope would it be to jump in, right? Like you're up in that moment. And
Yeah.
And we did it. And we had no film, no camera. It just happened. Like at this point, I'm basing this off of a trust me bro moment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But man, maybe that's what got me into film too. Besides cinema and the fact that like I feel like nobody's connected the world more than cinema, especially during COVID. I mean, movies get to tell such beautiful, immaculate stories, and I'm getting ready. We're getting ready actually to make a documentary about Ridgecrest because I want to tell that story. Like I don't just want to talk about this. I want to show you where it was, what happened. There's a place out there where there's like, I guess it's a dormant volcano now. Don't quote me on that either, but there's a place called Fossil Falls, which is basically a giant waterfall made out of like fossilized lava it's super cool.
Wow, okay.
And it just kind of like molded the rock and like made it so unique and that's where we learned to move. Like coal cars, where we learned to move, those old mine towns. And I want to capture that and share it with other people because the cities are so fascinating. But the minute I moved out here and I started learning parkour on a more serious note and really getting into filmmaking, I was like, I want to tell our story because our story's cool. Like my movement started there and that's cool. I want to capture that. And so I guess when it comes to cinema in particular and why I love it so much, it's because I think there's people and stories that deserve to be told. And where better to start than your own, you know?
I think that's where it all starts, right? Is let's tell our story, right? And that inspiration should inspire other people to want to tell their story.
Right.
You know? So I think that's an amazing thing. Let me ask you this, guys. Where can people connect with you?
I'll say that.
Yeah, all you.
I mean, you have my business card. If they ever want to connect with us, we have our website, filmrunners.com. We also have our YouTube channel, Filmrunners, Instagram account. Our first one got locked out, so it's now Filmrunners PK.
Got it.
And then I think those are the main three ways. Oh, email. We always have our email ready. It's team@filmrunners.com.
Okay. And do you guys only film parkour things, or is it any other athletic based film running or filming type of cinema?
For me, parkour's the base, but I mean, I just love movement. Like if movement's happening, I want to be a part of it. If stories are being told and movement's involved, I want to be a part of it.
Gotcha. So if I'm a basketball player and I want to record something to send out to some recruiters, if I'm a football player and I want to record something to send out to some recruiters, I could reach out to you guys, because at the end of the day, it's still that movement, right? The human body. You guys understand how to get the right angles, because obviously you have to film people jumping off walls
Right.
or like over buildings or whatever it may be. So, I'm sure is that something that you guys are open to doing as well?
100%.
Okay, cool,
100%.
cool. Yeah, that's awesome, guys. Well, let me ask you one last question: is there anything that you guys want to express or tell the world about Filmrunners and what you guys are doing, before we wrap it up?
You want to go first?
No, actually, this one's all you. I got to think a little bit.
You want me to say it? Okay. So for the next world, here's a fun story here. You're not going to believe this. We actually had the most famous free runner come to the Fit Expo, but nobody knew him.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that. He just looked like a normal dude in a green sweater. His name is Pasha the Boss. So we had pros come in for our battles at War of the Walls, and one of the pros had their buddy. I'm just going to say his name because you're already getting along with him. His name is Stanislav. Hopefully he sees this. What's up, Stas? Anyways, he brought his buddy Pasha the Boss, who's actually one of the most famous free runners, I'm going to say, in the world, because if you follow him on IG, you'll see all the views and all the followers he has. And I just find it interesting because I asked the kids, do you guys know him? Like, these are I'm going to consider them third generation of parkour, meaning they're being coached by the second generation. And when I asked them, they're like, we have no idea who he is. And I'm like, the most famous parkour athlete is not known already by the third generation, meaning there's already a loss of translation. And to me, I told Aiden that just sounds like an open gap, because that means me and you and I are more famous to those kids than Pasha the Boss. Meaning, it's still out there. It's up for grabs when it comes to that. And all it takes is whoever put themselves out there, because while everybody was focused on competing during that past weekend, I made sure to put myself out there with other people as well. And that's how we got all these contacts. So, I mean, I just want everybody to know all it takes is just putting yourself out there. You can be the best athlete in the world, but if you don't know how to put yourselves out there, then to those little kids, they think I'm better than Pasha the Boss. And I'm not telling you, Pasha, if you see this, I am not better than you in any way. You will destroy me in anything. But it's what the next generation, that's what the kids see, and I'm not going to.
It all comes down to marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a good point. That's a really good point, because, if you are an athlete in any capacity, right, if nobody knows you, then how will they book you or how will they recruit you, right? And it's the same thing with a business, right? If nobody knows you, how do they buy from you? So I love that. I love that, man.
I think, and to add to that myself, I think a lot of that whole is kind of given as well, right? They've already made it. They don't need to market themselves anymore. They have their base. They're giving it up to the next group of people. Somebody's got to take up that mantle, right?
I like that. Well, Jamie, right, and Aiden, thank you both for coming in. I appreciate that. This is a really cool conversation.
This was a lot of fun, man.
I really look forward to having you guys back on in about a year or so, and seeing the progression of Filmrunners and what you guys do out there, man, in the parkour community.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
for
of course.
sure.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. All right, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of you. We'll see you on the next episode. Sweet.